Welcome to Leaders Lead Podcast. Are you ready to conquer your challenges and achieve greatness? Join us as we dive into inspirational stories of industry leaders who have overcome adversity and reached new heights. Get ready for electrifying insights and captivating conversations that will ignite your passions for success. This is your go-to show for empowerment, growth, and leadership. Buckle up. Leaders Lead Podcast is here to take you on a transformational ride. Welcome, everybody. This is Leaders Lead the Podcast. I am your host. Today, I have a special guest, my brother, Steven Pemberton. I am really inspired by this guest. Steven, he actually reached out to me. How long ago was that, Steven?
Man, it's been a few months now.
Has it been? I was thinking more than, yeah.
It's been a little bit. It's been a minute.
Yeah, you reached out to me and we were talking about different opportunities. And one thing that I was really kind of like what kept the conversation going was the fact that you are the master when it comes to business development. And at the time, I have a really good audience on LinkedIn. And you were interested in teaching me how to captivate that audience. And me and you, we kept talking in the DMs. And I think we formed a pretty good relationships. I think we might be on track to being best friends at this point. but yeah, man, I'm excited to have you on the show. Welcome, Steven Pemberton. How are you, man?
Tony, thank you so much for having me. I'm great. And I'm just excited to be here just to talk in person instead of just through the DMs.
Yeah, that is really weird. I was looking at your bio on LinkedIn. It said, I am a 6'4" white Hawaiian that loves God, my family, white Hawaiian that loves God, my family, building businesses, public speaking, and helping others through their trials and tribulations. Yep. Tell me about that, man.
Man, you are the first person ever to actually take the time to even just like scroll down a little bit on LinkedIn and press see more. But the reason why I have it structured that way is because we're virtual. Like right now, you can't tell if I'm 6'4" or if I'm 5'4". Like you have no idea. So the reason why I structured it that way is I wanted people to have a sneak peek into who I am. I mean, my mom is from Hawaii, so she actually is Hawaiian. And then my dad is from Tennessee, so he is definitely white. And when they met and had me, obviously I'm white Hawaiian. So that's kind of the backstory on why that. But honestly, I've just been through so much in my life. I've been through, especially over the last 11 years, almost, a little over 11 years now with my wife, when we've been together 11, married, going on 11. So we've been together almost 12. Let me get that straight. But
wait, is she in the room? Is she in the room with you?
Yeah, she's over there.
I was going to say,
she got headphones on.
Did you look?
She doesn't know.
I was going to say, did you look over there and ask her how long to
No, I looked over there just to make sure that she had her headphones on. So in case I messed it up, that she didn't get it, I don't get in trouble after the show. So I'm trying to see if I'm getting in trouble right now. But no, she got headphones on, so we should be good. But yeah, I mean, we've just been through so much life, man. And so that's why I just understand what it means to nowadays, like, yeah, you can sit there and you can look at the successes and look at all those different things. But the reason why I structured it that way is more people than not are in the middle of something. They've started a business. They haven't actually succeeded yet. So they're in the middle. They're building something. They haven't seen it come to pass yet, or they just got into a relationship. They're not married yet. So they're kind of in the middle. They don't know if it's going to work, if it's not going to work. So I understand the trials and tribulations a lot better than I understand the success.
Ooh, yeah, dude. Especially when it comes, I get that, brother. Especially when it comes to this thing that we call entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I will be the first to tell you when we were building our business, man, there's been many a nights where I'm crying, trying to hide the fact that I'm crying. My wife said, "What's wrong?" And I'm just like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing here.
Yeah.
I thought I knew what I was doing, but when doing it, I mean, it brings on so many different trials and tribulations. And that's why we got this podcast, is because I want to not only inspire entrepreneurs to keep going through what they're facing in this game of entrepreneurship, but give them hope, but also give them tangible lessons. And that's why I'm so super glad that you're willing to share your time with me. Hollow Co and Elevatem, right?
Yes. Yep.
Tell me about those businesses, brother.
So HolloCo, that's actually how we met. So HolloCo is a online events production company where we run online events for coaches and consultants. And that is a complete done for you thing. So we set up everything except for the lights, cameras, and action. You've got to provide those things on your end. And that's kind of the synopsis for HolloCo. Elevatem, that is a business consultancy. And we work with businesses that are doing about $1 million to 10 million. Those are usually in the areas of e-commerce, because that's my background, strongly in e-commerce and in the online space. But e-commerce is a big one. We work with SaaS founders, and we also work with hard tech. Not near as much in the hard tech space, but the e-commerce and SaaS are the big ones for us.
Oh, I love it. I'm trying to really figure out not just the company, but the story behind the person of the company. What's your story, Steve?
So that's what I loved how you opened it up by just reading off my bio, because when I think about my story, is I could sit there and I could tell you about the millions of dollars we've done online and the people we've helped. But honestly, my story, yes, exactly. And I'll get there. But my story, honestly, has just encapsulated in so many pitfalls, because I've been in that same exact spot where you've been, probably much more recently than most people would expect. But I've literally been sitting there just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I don't know. Like, I'm just sitting there crying. It's like, I thought I knew what I was going to do until this. And that actually, before I dive too deep into my story, there's a quote that I love by Mike Tyson. He says that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. So I feel like that's e-commerce, that's entrepreneurship, especially like everything entrepreneur. It doesn't matter what you're starting, is you can have the best business plan, but until you actually get started and you start talking to people, you start actually creating the product, you start actually doing the marketing, you don't realize everything that it takes until you get punched in the face and you go, I don't know if I do I just stay down here. Do I actually get up? Maybe I should just go get a job, because this actually kind of sucks. And so there's been so many moments like that in my life that I've just realized that you just got to get up and keep going, because you don't lose until you quit. Like, you will win eventually over a long enough time horizon, but you will always lose anytime you quit. So just being able to get up out of those hard times. I mean, the big one for me is I always start back. 2020 is when I quit my job. I was in a corporate job for 5.5 years, the youngest manager in a Fortune 500 company. I rose through the ranks really quickly. And so when I left that job, it wasn't like, oh, this is amazing, because I had built my identity in that place. Like, that place developed me, it created me. So whenever I decided to leave, the year before, we had done $1 million online on Amazon. And when people hear $1 million in revenue, they're just like,
that's you yourself, not your company, right?
Right. So that's So that's what it was really my wife at that time. Ooh, she had done that. So I give her the credit for that. I was there a little bit, but she was the one that really did it. And $1 million revenue is amazing, but the profit margins were trash. So we didn't make that much money. So when I came home, it wasn't like we were sitting on a mountain of cash and it just made sense for me to quit. We're in the middle of a complete restructuring of that entire business to try to help those margins be higher, because they were about 10%. And when I came home, it was significantly less. We were probably doing maybe at that point like 50,000 we had for the year. So we went from $1 million in sales down to 50K. It wasn't like it was a huge restructure. Oh. So when I came home, it was not a smooth transition. I had no idea what to do. That's what most people don't tell you when you become your own boss, is there's no one telling you what to do. Like, I'm sitting there and I'm just going, what do I do now? Maybe I'll just play video games. I'll go take a nap. I'll go for a walk. You actually have to structure yourself. And that's a whole skill set that if you don't have it, you have to learn it. And pretty quickly after that, so I came home in June 26, 2020. In August, we had our Amazon account shut down, which means when Amazon shuts you down, they hold all of your money that you've made off your sales. By that point, we'd really been ramping up. So they were holding about $58,000 of our money. We had another $32-ish thousand in inventory that we had at our house. So close to 100, that's about 90,000 total in debt. So we went from at least making money to now we're just like way in debt. And so we're trying to figure out, how do we even keep the lights on at this point? Like, what are we supposed to do? Mm-hmm. And that moment was really pivotal, because at that moment, it was just one of the times when you just get hit in the face. And just like you were saying, we're sitting there crying in a corner. And we go, what do we do? And then we tried everything that we thought to try, and nothing was working. So at that point, it's just like, okay, I'm going to go get a job. I'm going to go drive and do Uber Eats. I'm going to go do whatever I got to do to make money. But I just remember I decided to stay the course. And at that point, what was really cool about staying the course in that moment, because I felt like that was what the Lord had told me to do. I have it written down in a notebook somewhere. And I actually had to tell that directly to my mom. And my mom was not happy. She was like, you need to go take care of your family. You need to do whatever it takes. And I'm grateful because now she's come a long way. But in that moment, she was just scared for me. So when I told her I'm staying the course, it's like, there was nothing to hold on to. There was nothing to stay the course on. There wasn't as if we had a business at all. So it was crazy.
Water, no ship, no nothing.
Yeah, nothing. And what we got blessed really shortly after that, where my wife, she was on Facebook Marketplace and just saw how somebody posted a product on there and said, Steven, I think this is what we used to do on Amazon. Do you want to try it? And I'm like, we have nothing to lose. Why not? So we ended up trying it. And then the first month we made $5,000 profit. This was in October of 2020. By the end of 2020, we were doing well enough to be able to help 33 underprivileged kids have Christmas. In 6 months from that point, we were doing $100K a month again. And then by the end of 2021, we ended up breaking $1 million, this time with much better margins. And we were able to help 137 underprivileged kids have Christmas. That was about a $50,000 project where we actually found them in the backwoods of Tennessee, in the school system of Tennessee, bought all the presents, wrapped them all, delivered them all. We were Santa and the elves that year. And 2022, we ended up doing a pretty hard shift away from e-commerce in general. Like we went completely away from it and stepped fully into HoloCo. And that's how you and I met about a year down the road from that, where HoloCo was just strictly what we went into. At first, it was a lot of different things. HoloCo has not always been online events. HoloCo, in the beginning, we were going around doing brick and mortars and helping them come online with our e-commerce skills. That made sense. But then I remembered it was so much work because we had no idea. When you go from direct to consumer to business, that's a whole different skill set. So I didn't realize that it's like, wait, it seemed like a lot of money. That contract seemed like a lot of money in the moment. But then when we started having to do all of their social media and shoot all their content and make all their marketing and make their entire website and put all their products on there and find the products and everything you would do for yourself, I went, this ain't worth it. This contract is not worth the money. And I remember there was a lady came to me and she said, Steven, I've spent $10,000 on a consultant to help me with my online event, and I have no idea what to do. How can you help me? And luckily for her, we had already been running some online events for ourselves. So I said, sure, I can come and help you be able to put it on. And we ran that first event with her, and she was able to get success within the first month. So literally from the day we signed up with her, within the first month, we had constructed the entire event, ran the event, everything. So a super quick turnaround, which usually is not that fast. So really quick turnaround. She was able to get people there, able to get success in that event. And I thought, okay, maybe we've got something here. And then a couple months later, we ended up getting signed on with a big PR agency, being able to run events for him. And then we just continued on doing online events for other people still in that space with HoloCo, helping people run their online events. And then here recently, we just picked it up again to go back into business development, because I've always been kind of over there in that space, helping out and doing that anyways, just as side projects while building HoloCo. But then we've just stepped more fully into it, because that's really where my skill sets all come together. Yeah, that's where all of me comes together.
I was going to ask you really quick, what is business development for the listeners? Yeah.
So for us, what makes business development, actually breaking it down granularly, is we look at the business as an entirety, as the whole entity. We don't just look at it from a marketing aspect or from a customer fulfillment aspect or supplier. We look at the business as a whole and identify the gaps in it. There's a great example. I talked to a gentleman, and we're actually having a conversation later this week. Talked to him last week. He's doing $5 million a year. Excuse me. It's a pretty decent sized business doing $5 million a year. But he said, Steven, I want to get to 10 million. I'm like, okay, great. And he said, right now we're doing such and such amount of money per day. And he said something that really stood out to me, is he said, we'll have days where we spike really high up. We'll do 200K in a day. He's like, there's days where it'll dip. And he said, I don't understand why. And when he doesn't understand why there's a disparity and it's basically an ocean, that's where there's a big gap he doesn't know how to fill. So that gives me insight into what's his gap. So then my partner, he had a multi-7-figure award-winning agency, he sold it, and then he was a fractional CMO for years, he's working with me on these projects. So he came in and it literally in 10 minutes, he just looked at this guy's websites and stuff and said, hey, these got a lot of issues in these areas. And I was just, and when we look at business in that way, we're looking for the really big gaps that you can close quickly to get the client the fastest amount of success. And for them to be able to understand, it's like, oh, wow, I just went from 5 million to 6 million in a year. Those are great. Or I went from 5 to 10 million. It's like, but if you can get them the quick win, where you add an extra $10,000 because they're such a big company, the same problem that you solve for someone doing 100K in a year, it might get them an extra 1,000. But somebody doing 5 million in a year, that same gap that you close may get them an extra million.
Whoa. Dude, that's insane. Yeah. Dude, so it definitely sounds like you know what you're doing.
Yeah. And here's something that's really cool is this is something for everyone. And like for me, I'm of faith. I believe in Jesus. So I have that faith belief. And for me, what's really cool is just like I have a partner where maybe I don't have all the skills. I don't want to sit here and say, hey, Tony, I'm a master at marketing. I'm a master at hiring. I'm a master at every single piece of business, SEO. I'm a master at leadership. I'm a master at everything because I can't be. I'm not old enough because you got to put in a certain amount of hours for you to be a master at anything. It's over 10,000 hours to master a skill. So if I was a master of 5 skills, that'd be 50,000 hours. That is a long time. So realistically, that is almost 8 years. So that's almost 8 years of time just in those categories. That means nothing else. Just 8 years of doing those only things. So, but the cool thing is I have a partner who his skill sets complement mine. My strengths are his weaknesses and his strengths are my weaknesses. So that way we can focus on our strengths. And when you focus on it that way and realize you have a partner who you can lean on, like this guy's done work with Apple and Expedia and all these different things. He's done like big work. He's worked with multi-million dollar companies. And he's able to come in and he's sitting there working with me. So for us, we bring so much to the table that it's not just me. I don't want to sit here and just hype myself up and say it's all me. Just like you, I mean, you're amazing at what you do. And you have a team of people that help you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And that's one thing as far as an entrepreneur that I had to realize that it is not cool being a doggone solopreneur, right? I had this thing in my head, brother, where I like even with my wife and my son who worked with me for years and years, when this thing that I'm doing right now is when it was just kind of like a side thing, my hobby, they would work with me, give me information. But when this thing turned into a business, I was so adamant about doing everything myself, so adamant about, it was, I think it was more of what a lot of entrepreneurs have is that ego, a little bit of ego is healthy, but we as entrepreneurs, we got to get out of that mindset of, okay, we can do it all by ourselves. We don't need anybody to do it. And we'll bring on people once we figure it out. And just like you said, there's a lot of things that I'm not good at when it comes to structure. It's just like Zinc. So thankful for the partner with Zinc because this is the very first time where I've actually had topics. Yeah. Where I've actually had topics. Normally it's just going from my heart, but as an entrepreneur, you can't go from your heart. You have to be very, very, very tactful and know what you're good at, know what you're not good at. I'm curious, what are some of those things that you've come to realize that you're not so good at?
So I think one thing for me and for everyone listening is figuring out what you are good at. Once you figure out what you are good at, it's pretty easy to identify what you're not good at. Like for me right now, if I was to think about basketball, for example, I'm a good shooter. If you ask me to dribble the ball up in a full court press, I'm passing that baby. That's not going to happen. We're going to have a turnover. So for me is what I realized, this actually happened when I was in corporate. When I was in a corporate structure, I realized very quickly because I rose up the ranks in the same vertical. So I started in a warehouse, worked my way up in a warehouse, and then eventually I took over an entire warehouse. And so when that happened, I knew every step of it. So I also knew what I needed to do to delegate. And I think that a lot of times, going even what you said, entrepreneurs don't want to delegate. I've even seen this because we're really involved with some bigger nonprofit organizations. I've seen that with people who they're tied to someone who's important. So they just want to feel like or show that they're doing everything themselves. Mm-hmm. And but that doesn't make you that is not the equivalent of a capable leader. A capable leader lifts everyone else up. Like if everyone else looks good, then you look good. Because what happens is that if you have been able to empower your team so well that they go out and they're crushing everything, so you're just sitting on the couch, to you, you may feel like that you're not doing anything, but you've actually done the best thing, which is helping other people. So for me, that was one of my strengths. So with e-commerce, when our business started taking off, because in the beginning, you're going to have to wear all 10,001 hats, right? You're the janitor, you're the marketing guy, you're the sales guy, you're the product development team, you're everything. And what I found quickly was, my wife and I were spending hours and hours and hours and hours doing all of the mundane tasks. But as soon as we could, we just hired all that out. Because if you are the business owner and all you're doing is just focus on working on those mundane tasks, you're not actually growing the business. You are just so enveloped in taking care of what you've built that you're not actually building anymore. So you're just slowly dying over time. There's a gentleman that I had on my podcast yesterday. He was talking about coming on board with a gentleman who had been in business for 19 years, and the business was 4 people. And then in the span of the last 5 years, they've more than tripled the team and they've quadrupled how many clients they brought on because that guy learned how to hire. And I asked him a question. I said, how did you get this guy to actually start hiring people? Because if he's done it for 19 years and he never wanted to hire anybody, what changed? And he said, it just took the first couple of hires to realize that he had to get his head out of the weeds to focus on the business and focus on growing it. So for me, it's when you have to figure out what you're really good at. If you're really good at marketing and that's your thing, then maybe when you get to a big enough space, hire a CEO to focus on everything else. You be the CMO and you focus on the marketing. If you're great at operations and you're not so great at everything else, be the operations guy. And then hire out the other things. Yes, you're going to take less margins, but I promise you, if you hire the right people to fit your culture, you're going to grow where that little bit smaller margin is going to pay you a lot more than if you had 100% of the pie.
Ooh, I love that. What do you think was your biggest weakness when it came to you running your business initially?
I think my biggest weakness, that's actually a great question, but I would say my biggest weakness when it came to running my business was honestly the lack of information that I had. Because I think that a lot of times, because we talk about this, you're building a plan based off of what you know. And then when you get hit in the face, you realize it's like, I didn't realize he could throw a right hook like that. But you didn't do enough research to actually know that this guy throws a right hook that way. So that's why you got punched in the face. So for me, it was a lack of information, especially because if you listen to my story the way I told it earlier, 2020, quit the job. The business gets shut down. 2 months later, we get into another business. A year later, it's $1 million business. That's very rapid. We learned a lot of great business skills there, but there wasn't enough downtime where you just had to sit there and build a business on your face, right? Where you're sitting there, it feels as if you're scraping your face up a hill on glass. Because when you in those times, in the hard times, in the trial and tribulation times, that is when your character is built. That's when you actually have to go and learn. You have to go try. You have to A/B split test things because maybe not every time you touch something is gold. But in the beginning, everything I touched was gold. And then over the past couple of years, it was not that way. So over the past couple of years, I've had to learn. And I think just the lack of those things that I had to persevere against held me back. So when we actually started running into those things, I didn't know how to handle it. My character didn't know how to handle it. So when that started happening, I would find myself getting upset or getting depressed or overeating or doing whatever it was instead of doing what I needed to. I didn't know what it actually meant to focus on growing the business. When I look back on the $1 million business with the skill sets I have now, I went, dude, that could have been 10 million. It's if I just would have done these things different. But that's why I'm saying the biggest thing that I lacked back then, and I didn't understand when people said that you had to have a different mindset, which your mindset really does dictate what skill sets you need. But because my mindset was, oh, this will last forever at $1 million a year, instead of realizing that the end was sooner than I thought, if I would have thought differently, then that business would have been different. So changing my mindset has been the biggest thing. That was by far the biggest weakness I had, was just my character and my mind.
Ooh, your character and your mind. Dude, that takes a strong man and business operator to admit your character and your mind, because I see so many organizations, even when I was working, when I had my job, my peers, I would look at them and they would be complaining about their people and, oh, they just suck. And we never get things done on time. And we're not making the mark, this and that. And I just look at them and I'm like, man, you're the problem.
Yeah.
you are the problem. And it seems like as soon as we as leaders realize that more than likely we are the problem, even if it's the people that we hired, we are the problem and it's up to us to fix it. Were there any books that led to being a catalyst to you kind of redefining your mindset and your mentality when it came to business?
I would say that some of the biggest ones for me, whether you believe it, you don't believe it, the Bible has been a big one for me in business. Because if you just take the New Testament and you study that thing, you don't have to be of faith. Just study it as a person. It will change who you are in your character because you're learning how to love others well. And the thing is, I mean, because they talk about the two greatest commandments is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and then to love others as you love yourself. But how can you love others if you don't love yourself? And so for me, when I studied that, that's when I realized it's like I'm treating my clients the way that I'm treating myself. I'm sitting there and I'm lowballing myself into jobs that I would never take if I was in a different situation. And that's when I think back to even what we said earlier. You have to be willing to say, no, this is my fault. I mean, it doesn't matter what it means. You could be in a car and you get hit, but you can sit there and if you say, hey, this is my fault, how was I responsible? If you can take that responsibility, you can say, well, maybe I left 2 minutes early. Maybe I went over the speed limit, but then you can be in control. But when you start blaming everyone else and everything else and every circumstance on why you feel the way you feel and why you're acting the way you're acting, then you have no control. So I would say that the Bible has been a huge one for me in business and in life to change who I am in my character. And there's some amazing, amazing books. There was one that I read last year. It's called The Uncertainty Solution. That one was really good. There's a book that I've read this year called The Founders. The Founders is excellent as well because you get to hear just the story of how they created PayPal. So you're hearing all these stories about how PayPal almost died. You would think once you got to $100 million evaluated company that you're just rolling in it. But they almost died. That company almost died at that evaluation. There's people that we hear of right now. There's unicorns that are going bust right now that they had $1 billion evaluation and they're gone. And I think a huge reason for that is because the people leading it, they can't get out of their own way. But for me, I was in the way of our last business, of the one that did $1 million. And when I look back on my corporate career, I used to blame my bosses above me on why my team started getting worse and worse. But when I look back, I'm sitting there playing games on my phone, watching YouTube 2 hours a day while I'm at work. I'm pretty sure it wasn't their fault. I'm pretty sure it was my fault. But just learning how to take responsibility. And that's why I think that for me, the Bible has been the catalyst to changing who I am in my character.
Ooh. That's good. I've never, when you said that verse, I literally got chills like in my hands because it's so relevant. I've never, ever thought about reading the Bible under these circumstances. I've read the Bible twice when I was growing up as a kid, but I've never thought about it as doing. I think there's somebody else. There's another entrepreneur, Myron Golden. He teaches principles out of the Bible. Are you familiar with Myron?
Yep, I know Myron Golden. Yeah.
That's freaking interesting. When we're talking about, I was thinking about your journey as far as entrepreneurship. Is there a person or a story inside of the Bible that you would be like, yeah, that definitely sounds like my journey?
Man, I could get lost and find myself in so many of those stories. Cause I mean, I can go Old Testament. Everyone wants to be King Solomon, right? Everyone wants to be the one who's sitting on the throne, but I honestly don't believe that that's my story. I believe that for me, the big thing, my camera will focus here in a second, most likely, but the big thing that I found myself in was in David's story, because with David, like David was a warrior king. And the big thing that I think about with having vision is because he had a vision for how his life would go. I mean, he had lots of victories, and then for technically no fault of his own, Saul was trying to kill him for like 10 years. Mm-hmm. So there's so much where he had to, and you watch it. So exactly what we talked about with David, is you watch him be a man of character. He kills Goliath. He does all these things. The people love him. Saul's after him. He's still being a man of integrity. And then slowly over time, he chooses to be someone else. And it gets to the point where he's almost about to get stoned to death, because when he was out doing who knows what, these people came and took everyone, took all the men, women, took all the women and children, took all their stuff. So his own soldiers who had been with him forever said, hey, we're just going to kill this dude because obviously he ain't doing nothing. And in that moment, he decided to turn back to the Lord, and then the Lord gave him victory not long after he ends up on the throne. So for me, I find myself more in that story where there's been times like having $1 million business where everything seems really good. Then when the business went away, it's like, okay, I'm trusting, I'm believing, I'm moving forward. And then there comes a time when it feels as if nothing I'm touching is working. Those are the moments where I decided, like, that's where my character really started to change, was when adversity really hit. Because when adversity really hit, that's when I went, okay, now I have to discover who am I really? Because who you are in the dark, when nobody's looking, when nobody's listening to you, that's who you really are. So that was a big one for me. Then if I look in the New Testament, I mean, there's so many people, everyone wants to find themselves in Jesus, but I'm so far away from perfect that I'm definitely not going to say that. But I would say that I think it just really depends, because there's moments I find myself like Thomas at the end, because we just coming off of Easter. Thomas, he's a disciple. He's actually the one when Jesus is going back to raise Lazarus from the dead. And they're saying, Jesus, are you sure you want to go back? Because they just tried to kill you over there. And Thomas said, hey, let's go. I'll die with him. This same dude, when Jesus dies on the cross, he doubts it so greatly. When Jesus comes back, he said, I won't believe it until I get to put my hand in his hand and put my hand in his side, in the wound in his side. I won't believe that he's come back. So there's times where I'm sitting there and I'm ride or die like Thomas. And there's also times where I'm like Thomas and I go, hey, I'm not going to believe that this is real until I can actually tangibly touch what this vision is, until I can tangibly touch the paycheck, until I can tangibly touch the client. I'm not going to believe that the vision I have is actually real.
Wow. Dude, that's hey, Steve, man, this is a good interview. Oh man, that is some good stuff. I would imagine that that book also helped you get through some of the hard times. And I was curious, and I'll kind of give you some context here. As you can see at the bottom, what were your biggest obstacles that you've had to overcome as a person? I asked that because a lot of times as entrepreneurs, what we do is oh my God, I can't believe I'm going through this. My kids are sick.
Yeah.
Or, oh my God, I broke my leg. I can't walk. Or, oh my God, I got shot. Oh my God, like all of these different things. And then the business stops because of that obstacle that you've had. And you have no idea if you would have kept going, like how fast or how close your goal was to you. So that's why I was curious. Have you overcome any like personal obstacles that you're willing to share with our audience in the hopes of inspiring them through their hardships, man? Because I hear from them quite a bit. I mean, they're going through death, like everything that I mentioned. Getting shot, car accidents, house burning down, all of a sudden going from $3 million to being homeless just like that.
Yeah. All right. So let's get real for a minute. I'm going to tell you stuff that I haven't said on any other podcast. So it doesn't matter where anyone else goes. You're not going to hear the story anywhere else, even on my own podcast. In the last year, so within the last 365 days, I've come home with a note on my door twice that we were going to get evicted. So how do you keep going when you feel like everything you've done, every single day you're working on something and you're not seeing any fruit from it? And yet you still choose to keep going, even with the note on the door. And I'm here. I'm like, we're still here. So we didn't get kicked out. So I just want people to understand that you can be in those darkest moments. I mean, literally on the brink with the people showing up at your house saying, hey, you got to get out within the next 5 days, pretty much. Well, this actually happened twice. We had 5 days, and both times there was money came through last second. So I want you to understand that if you give up because you have a right to feel how you feel, right? I had a right to be depressed. I had a right to be scared. I have a family. I have a wife. I have a 10-year-old son. So I'm sitting there and I'm going, what am I supposed to do? I can't go get a job now. I've got 5 days. I can't go get a job. I can't go do enough Grubhub orders. I can't go do enough Uber to be able to pay what it needs to be paid. So what you got to do in those moments, you just got to double down on what you've already done. Even if you haven't seen all the success that you're looking for yet, double down. For the person who's out there and you just got shot and now you're trying to figure out, how do I go on in my life, is you may not be the same version of you that you were before you got shot, but you get to decide what version you bring to the table next time that you get up out of that hospital bed. For the person that you had $3 million and you lost everything and now you're homeless and you're living with a family, trust me, if you did it once before, you can do it again. Just because you did it once and it's gone, don't linger in the past and wish that things were different and wish that you could go back, because I promise you that those same skill sets that got you to 3 can get you to 3 again. You just have to take the time to pick yourself back up and try again. Like I said earlier, you only lose when you quit. For everyone who your kids are sick, I get it. And take care of them babies if you need to. Take a day off to take care of those babies if you're an entrepreneur. You need to invest into the one thing that will always pay you dividends, which is yourself and your family. And then after they're good, you need to focus on you. The other thing that I would say is to anyone out there who's really struggling, like you in dead up to your eyeballs, you living with family, you doing whatever you got to do just to put food on the table, is don't give up on your dream. You had a dream for a reason. You wrote it down for a reason. You believed in it for a reason. Continue to believe in yourself and build. It's not going to come overnight. Rome was not built in a day. It did burn down in a day, but it was not built in a day. So that means that you just have to keep putting a brick down every single day. That's what we talk about, getting 1% better every day. Not 100% better, there's no way. But if you get 1% better every day, and let's say that you don't do it every day, but you do it 300 days, that is 300% better than you were to begin the year. So that's 65 days I'm giving you off, like 65 days for y'all to do nothing. But I'm just saying, if you get 1% better, at the end of the year, you will be significantly better than you ever were. So that's my 2 cents to everyone who's in a dark spot. This is just a season of your life. This is not the rest of your life unless you choose for it to be. You can be in this season for the rest of your life if you just think that this is all you'll ever be anymore. But you get to decide, because I have seen it time and time again. I'm living proof that you can be in the dark moments and come out on the other side. I've seen people who have been through much worse than me come out on the other side and be able to live a much more fulfilled, a much more enhanced life, but they chose something different.
Yeah, beautifully said, brother. When you mentioned the 2 notices on your door, as you were telling that story so beautifully, it was almost like it was happening to me, man. I felt it, like I could just feel it, and it made my eyes kind of get watery, because I can only imagine how you felt. Like, I mean, you had the freaking the pressure was on you, man.
Oh yeah.
Wow. So what was your mindset in that? Like, were you like, okay, I gotta get to work, or man, I need to go back to doing more Ubers, or like, were you spiraling? Because I would be spiraling.
So look, I'll be honest, with the way that last year went, there was times that we had the electricity cut off. There's times we had the water cut off. So when it led up to the big thing, which was the eviction notices on the door, there was things I learned in that last year. One, when it came to adversity, is there were so many times that I felt depressed, where I felt as if I had crippling depression. There was nothing I could do, but what I realized is that your feelings are supposed to be indicator lights. They're supposed to let you know this is what's going on in your mind and your body, but you still drive. So for me, I decided that I'm going to keep driving the car, and I'm just going to keep getting in front of this computer. I'm going to keep reaching out to people. I'm going to keep getting on sales calls. I'm going to keep doing whatever it takes, because there was no choice. It's either that or lose everything, and there's no one else to help me. So that was where I just decided, because yes, in moments I would start spiraling, and I went, no, I have to choose something different. And it's choosing something different in those moments. Yeah, maybe the enemy gets a day. Maybe your mind just gets messed up for a day, and that's fine. Sit in the corner and cry for a day, but don't stay down. We hear about it, and this actually comes from the Bible too, is that a righteous man falls down 7 times, but he gets up again. So for me, is I'll get knocked down. I'll be face down crying somewhere at some point, absolutely, but I won't stay down there, because I can't. I have so much on my plate with my family. And when I realized it's not even just for them, is if I stay down, there's people, and you understand this with Speaker University, if you just gave up today, there is hundreds of people who are attached to you. It's not just your family. You can't quit. You actually are doing this for more than just your family. You're doing this for people you will never meet, for comments that you'll never see. So for me, is I just realized I get to choose right now. I can go back to comfort and go get a job and go probably get a pretty decent paying job, but that's not my purpose. I'm not fulfilled in that space. The people I'm meant to reach, the people I'm meant to touch, I'm not going to touch them if I'm just working behind the desk again and I'm hidden. I'm actually called to this. So that's how I was able to get myself out of a spiral.
Yeah, dude, that's beautiful. I think back when, like, around the pandemic hit, I had just left my job and things were going so good, man, as far as me and my motivation of speaking. I was getting booked for gigs. We had 10,000 people registered for speaking engagements. I had just got a call from Dubai. I was going to go to Dubai. They were going to, it was going to be the biggest payday ever. And things were, oh my God, things were going so good. But then, my beautiful, my daughter got sick and I wasn't able to travel. And I'm just like, whoa, what am I supposed to do in this moment? Because I've been putting forth hours. I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars to get the mentor, John Maxwell. I went through that training. I did some other training with Jeremy Anderson. All of this money, all of this time. And I was getting messages left and right, of course, from Indeed, all of these different jobs where I'm just like, oh man, I could just go back to work and make this money. No problem. But I started to think, I can't go back. I can't go back to work because that would be me losing sight of my purpose. So instead of traveling the world and this idea that I had, which I thought was my purpose, I went into my DMs and I started figuring out exactly how is it that I can still serve the people and serve my purpose at the same time. And that's how we started Speak University. And I'm pretty sure if I look up today, we might have close to 500 students that would not have been there, would not have been able to start the journey of mastering the fear of public speaking if I would have gave up and gone back to work to fulfill somebody else's purpose. So the people that are listening to this, I really want you to listen to Steve's story, listen to my story with the understanding of, if you have to go back to work, that's fine and dandy, but have a plan. A real plan that's really deep inside of yourself, a plan that's following your purpose so that you can get back on track, so that you can make things happen, because life happens to us, right? Or is it for us, right? You decide, right? You decide. So dude, you got me all in my feelings, man. You're taking me down memory lane because, dude, this is the stuff that entrepreneurs don't talk about. I look at, I can go on Instagram right now and I can just see the success stories. I could see all of that. And I talk to people all day. Those success stories, sometimes those are the stories that make, because they're not showing the other side of it. Those are success stories that make other entrepreneurs say, oh man, I'm not worthy. How can I get from step 0 to step 1,000? But it's just like, you're not hearing the story of what Steve had to go through with the electricity being cut off, with kids depending on you. I'll be honest with you, man. I never understood how, a person could get to the point of where they would be thinking about taking their own life. Yeah. In entrepreneurship, that was the very first time where I remember looking at my wife, and with all the things that were going on with me personally, I remember looking at my wife and saying, I get it now. I'm not there, but I totally get why somebody could go to that realm of the unknown. So man, I really love your message, man. I love what you're doing, dude. You really got me thinking, Steve.
Yeah. And one thing I just want to say for you, especially for the people listening, is you are living in legacy. because we so often hear the word legacy and we think about our kids and our grandkids and our great grandkids. But think about it. You have actually made an impact on close to 500 people's lives. You will never know the impact you've made on their kids and their grandkids and their great grandkids. So you are creating true legacy. Maybe their great grandkids won't look back and credit Tony, but they'll look back and say, hey, you know, my great grandfather, my great grandmother, they learned something from somewhere that transformed my life. And they said this one thing, and that's just stuck with me ever since. So that's when I think about what you've done. And for the people listening, is that you can maybe say, well, I'm not like Tony. I haven't helped 500 people. It doesn't matter. What if you've helped 5 homeless people by sitting there and giving them a McDonald's sandwich that was $1 on the dollar menu because you had points? If you did that, you are leaving a legacy, because you don't know who that person is. You don't know what they've been through. You don't know where they're going. So that one impact that you make on that person could honestly transform that person's world. Maybe you're not changing the entire world, but you're changing that person's world. And so I just want to give you that and just say, like, for you, Tony, especially, that you are creating legacy.
Ooh, I receive it. I received that from you, man. That makes me, this conversation is definitely inspiring to me, man. I receive it. And same as you, man. You're giving a lot of people hope. I'm really loving what you're doing. And I was going to ask you, how much time you got? You got a little bit more time?
I got time. Yeah.
Okay. What advice would you give aspiring entrepreneurs who are just starting out in e-commerce and also in the podcasting space? Because you got a podcast now.
Yeah, I got a podcast now. And that's weird to say, because I've had that podcast for almost a year. And at first it was just like a video testimonial for the most part. I was just doing a lot of videos of myself. Excuse me. But what I found is just having guests on develops your story. And more than anything, it develops the art of listening, because especially the way that you're doing it, when you do it, where you listen and you go, okay, that sounds really good. That reminds me of this story, or this makes me think of this next question. That's where gold is, because if you can learn how to listen really well, when you're on sales calls, you can hear people, like I said earlier, with the guy who's doing 5 million a year. I would love to have my business at 5 million a year. For him, is he wants 10, but he doesn't understand, honestly, what is making him different at 5. So there's a certain aspect of luck that is happening right now, where it's a big group of people coming in that are giving him big moments of increase in his revenue, because he doesn't understand the spikes. If in that one question, I was able to tell him, hey, this is what you don't see. So when I think about in the podcasting space, is you just got to get started and going and finding guests is not hard. People think that that's really hard.
It's not. It's the easiest part. Oh my God. That's
the easiest part. By far, that is the easiest thing. But just go find them. Now, maybe you're not going to be able to get Tony Robbins on your first podcast episode, but just start somewhere, because you're going to learn so much from other people's story. You're going to be able to build genuine relationships. So, and honestly, just do it however you can. Don't worry about trying to get on Zinc or trying to have Riverside and have the best audio, the best mic, the best camera, the best everything. It's just get started where you are, because I think that there's so much power in just getting started. The other thing is the same thing with e-commerce, is don't get so caught up in trying to have the most beautiful website and trying to figure out every single marketing plan and do everything. Is just get started. Because there's a guy, I can tell you with a story. There was a gentleman, he was a podcast host. He had me on as a guest, and we were talking about my story. Afterwards, he said, hey, my son, he actually just started an Amazon store, and he invested $5,000 and he's only sold one of them. And that one was to me and my wife. He said, can you help him? And I said, I can try. And so I connected with him, and I just talked to him for an hour. And what I realized is he told me, he's like, I spent 3 years watching YouTube and studying and doing everything I could, invested $5,000 and the product flops. Why? Because it took him 3 years to start. If you really want to get good at business, you got to start. The thing is I'm not telling you to take your life savings and put it into a product. What I am telling you to do is just start. If that means going and finding some products around your house, learning how to take pictures of it, learning how to list it, learning how to put it on Facebook Marketplace, doing those different things, learning how to communicate with people, that's called customer service. Learning these different skill sets is what's going to set you apart when you fully get in e-commerce. Then you can figure out who you need to hire to build a website or to do your marketing or do those things. But focus right where you're at. If you do that in both of those spaces and just get started, that's going to serve you dividends in the long term.
Oh, I love that. I was thinking when you were telling that beautiful story, I was thinking, you mentioned that you were able to give somebody advice. You're able to give somebody advice that were able to help them turn their business around.
Yeah.
And you also said that you were in a situation where you're like, I wish that I had that problem. As far as confidence, because what I would think, especially with, brand new entrepreneurs and even the most seasoned entrepreneurs, what I would think is they would get a customer of that caliber, and they would say, there's no way that I can help them. There's no way that I can support them because their problems are way bigger than the problems that I have. How did you overcome the confidence barrier in that, or did you even have it?
So I think that I love the way this is going, because for me is absolutely, to a certain degree, there's that thing, the imposter syndrome, right? Where I'm sitting there and he's doing 5 million. I'll talk about that guy. Most I've ever done in a year is $1 million. So I go, at first, when I hear those numbers, I go, I don't know if I could really help him. Like, those are the thoughts, right? But then when I get on the call and I'm listening to him, it's the same problems that I was having at $1 million. They're just bigger. I mean, it's the same levers. The $100,000 business, it's just the same levers. They're just pulling bigger levers. That's what people don't understand, is they think the difference between a $100,000 business and a $5 million business is you've got to learn so many different things and you've got to implement all these things and have all sorts of software, but that's not really true. For him, he just is at scale. So what that means, he found a product that works really well in his market. He found a who that works really well, and he found a marketing channel that works good for him. And once he got to it, now that he's at 5 million, he's capped himself out. He doesn't know how to grow beyond that. So when you get stuck at a barrier, it's not because what you did to get there didn't work. It's just what you did to get there won't get you to the next spot. So whatever took you to 100,000, if it's not taking you above that, then there's whatever took you there, you got to figure out what you need to do to get above that. So if you did 100 reach outs a day to get to 100K in a year, you might have to do a lot more, or you're going to have to change the channel, right? Or you're going to have to be able to figure something else out, add another marketing channel to get you from 100,000 to 200,000. But the same thing with the dude doing 5 million. It's when he doesn't understand the difference in how sporadic his business is, that lets me know that he doesn't have a consistent sales channel. I mean, if you have consistent sales channel, so let's say you were having 100 conversations a month, and out of 100 DMs that you sent, 50 of them got on an initial call. Out of those 50 initial calls, 25 of them got on a sales call. Out of those 25, you closed 5. If you could say that every single month, and every single one of the 5, they paid you $10,000. Well, that means that your company is making $50,000 a month. And that means that you just have to have 100 calls or 100 DMs that equals this, that equals this, equals this. So there's a level of him not understanding where his traffic is coming from and how that actually converts. He's not doing enough conversion rate optimization for him to understand where the actual miss is. Is it from the website? Is it from the marketing? Is it from his customer service reps, from the sales team? And that lets me know that there's value to be added. The same way with the guy who I'm sitting there and I'm able to help his business because he just invested 5,000, is he only can see what he sees, right? So for him, is he invested 5,000, he sold 1, he doesn't know why he's not being able to sell any more. He doesn't know what to do. He thinks he needs to run paid ads, when to me, as I go, you're $5,000 in the hole. You're working at a warehouse the way I used to be, and you think that spending more money is your way out.
New entrepreneurs, we all want to spend money. That's the way we get out of it, right?
Absolutely not. That is not the way we get out of it. Now, maybe if let's say that you were in a marketing department for a big company and you transition out and start your own company, investing money into paid marketing may be really smart because you're already used to it. But if you're not, don't do that, because there's so many great ways. Like for him, as I told him, go to all your local mom and pop pet stores because he had a pet product. Go to all those local mom and pop pet stores and tell them this is what you do. The thing about business that people don't realize is you can have the greatest product, but if no one knows it's there, it doesn't matter. You're not going to win. So you have to it's all about getting the word out. So figuring out how you're getting the word out, and just start with one thing. Don't try to I'm going to do Google ads and Facebook ads, and I'm going to make a zillion pieces of content, and I'm going to have a podcast, and I'm going to do 100 DMs a day, and I'm going to do this. It's like, you're not going to do any of those things well because you're trying to do 100 things all at one time. And there's just one of you. So just focus. You got to focus your time. And I think that more than anything else I just said, scrap everything else. If you're an aspiring entrepreneur who wants to get into anything, I don't care if you want to get into Rubik's cubing, focus. Like, do that. Learn how to focus on the one thing that's moving your business forward. If you want to be a professional Rubik's cuber, like practice your Rubik's Cube. That's the only way. If you want to get really good at e-commerce, focus on one thing first. If you're like, focus on what the product's going to be, make your product really good. Next, focus on how you're going to get the word out. Don't worry about your website. Focus on how you're going to get the word out. And then you can worry about the website later. But that's how I would do it. Podcasting is you got to get the word out. If you're going to get guests, you're not going to build a podcast and people are just going to come to you, right? You're not just going to sit there and, well, now I take that back. If you put that you're a podcast host on LinkedIn, you will get a ton of followers from people trying to help you grow your podcast listeners. So, hey, that's my hack. If you're trying to grow your LinkedIn followers, you just put podcast host. But honestly, if you want to get started with your podcast, just get started with whatever it is and then get the word out. Like, focus on the one thing that's actually going to move your business forward.
Heck yeah, man. I agree with that. How many episodes do you have already in the can for podcasting?
So, oh man, I'm over 20.
Ooh.
I'm well over 20 now with guests. So I would say with and without guests, I'm probably over 30, I'd say.
Good stuff. So this is a loaded question. What have you gained anything from starting your own podcast for your business? And if so, what have you gained?
Yeah. So two things is, one, I actually got a client through it. And then, so, hey, that's awesome. The client ended up being a nightmare, but I still got a client through it. But the other thing is, I've built some amazing relationships, right? Like, these are people that when I build the right relationship, you and I, we're cutting up and we're having a good time. I know I can talk to you afterwards. And I think that's the power of it. I heard this yesterday with the guy that I talked to, is deploying your relationships and doing it the right way. This is something I messed up a lot, where I would build a good relationship and then I would bomb it by trying to say, hey, if you just go and you introduce me to 10 of these people and then if they close, I'm going to send you a referral fee. No one cares, honestly. Except for this one guy, he did that and I'm still on the lookout, because the only thing I'm helping him with is $100,000 product. And if I help him get one, I get $30,000 out of that. So I'm like, hey, that's a big enough referral fee for me to at least think about it. But more than anything is just building strong relationships, because if you check in with people and just worry about who they are as people, it doesn't matter how big of a business owner they are. The guy was on my podcast and I know he's a billionaire. For me, is I just check in on him. Like, just check in on him, not worry about, hey, so have you talked to anyone who fits into this niche? And if so, can you introduce me to them? It's like, no, you don't actually care. You just care about you. And that's hard to say. And that's ego. But that was me at a few different intervals of my business career. So being able, like, podcasting, especially if you find somebody who really inspires you, or somebody who is in your same industry as you and they're just ahead of you, they're going to give you everything that you need on the podcast to be able to actually grow your business. We talked about this a little bit offline, but there's people that you've had on that have, just through their advice, have impacted you and helped you make more money. But the thing is, you also had to listen and receive what they were saying. Just be like, man, that's great. All right, see you next time. And then not do anything with it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Just like I was telling you before we hit record, Evan Carmichael gave me some game. He told me to do my podcast freaking every day. And ever since I talked to him on that conversation, I've been getting to the point of doing it every single day. Not trying to like go crazy on it, but getting to the point every single day. I cannot go back to him without completing that mission. And dude, and that's happened probably over 60 70 something times, where I've been able to get some very, very good business strategies from people that come on my show. And just like you said, building the relationship, that is so king. I've had relationships with people where I'm telling them, mentoring them kind of offline and, giving them these moves, giving them some plays, stuff that I had just learned, because that's my biggest thing. Ask me anything that you want. If you see something that I'm doing, ask me the question, because 9 times out of 10, somebody else just taught me. So I'm always willing to teach somebody else. But that will happen sometimes, brother. And I'll get them pitching me freaking 5 days later. And I'm just like, What I just gave you was so much valuable than me sponsoring your podcast. If you listen to what I told you before, me sponsoring your podcast, that's small potatoes. Like, get to get to it, right? So yeah, dude, thanks for sharing that, man.
That's why you got to get out of your head, right? Like, that's why I talked about mindset, because it doesn't matter if I'll give you real examples.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're the guy who's got the $5,000 invested in something, or if you're a buddy of mine who are running his events. He's done $20 million over the span of his career. 20 million is a big number. And he doesn't see, just think about this. I'm working with him to build out his products on the back end. He doesn't see the value in somebody paying him less than $500 a month to mentor them. And I'm just like, you've done $20 million online, and you don't think somebody's willing to pay you $497 a month to be able to get that knowledge. Why? It's not because of the lack of success. It's because of the lack of belief that he has in himself. So the mindset part, like, the reason why that person's coming back and pitching you is not because you didn't give them great advice. It's because they're scared. They're in a position where they need to make more money. Maybe they got an eviction notice on their door, and they think that you are the only way for them to be able to put food on the table for their family. So being able to empathize with people in that space and just be, it's like, oh, I really hate that you feel that way, that you feel that I'm a paycheck instead of a person. Because if you realize me as a person, it's going to pay you significantly more dividends than any amount of money I could give you, because I've seen that. I mean, the business partner that we brought on this year, he has been a friend of mine for the last year, and he just came online this year. Why? Because he saw me going through the evictions. He saw me working hard. He saw me doing everything that it took. And then when I came with him with a real offer and said, hey, I want you to come on board with this business. Here's the percentage of equity I'm willing to give you. All I need you to do is these couple things, and I will do literally everything else. And he's come on board and done significantly more than I could ever ask or think, because he knew at the end of the day, this man's going to put the work in. And he's not just here trying to get a paycheck out of me. He's actually trying to help me get a paycheck. So being able to build real relationships with people is going to pay you so much more, because there could be a piece of knowledge that you get from someone. I mean, honestly, if you built a relationship with Tony, a real one, and you just asked him, it's like, how do I even get my first speaking engagement? He's like, well, that's easy. You can just do this, this, and this. And it gets you your first speaking engagement. Guess what? You just got paid without Tony having to pay you anything. So look for the advice from people ahead of you. Don't look for a paycheck from the people ahead of you.
Heck yeah, because I ain't got it. Yeah, man. Dude, that is some solid information. I was going to ask you, I got two more questions for you. I know you're a busy man and you got to roll. Like I said before we started this, you reached out to me about, you were looking down at the question, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk about webinars a little bit. From our conversations, it seems like you have a belief that webinars is a difference maker. Why? Like, how do they help businesses? How do you think a webinar could help my business? I'm curious.
Yeah.
And
you
could use the information that I gave you, the webinar that I was freaking sitting on forever. I mean, you could whatever you think. Yeah.
I mean, I'll just give some pretty brief overview just using you, because with you especially, you have a big enough following where having something like a webinar where you put a little bit of time and effort into it, where it can be on Riverside, you can have it on Zoom, you can do it, like, it doesn't have to be high budget, but doing it in a way where it activates people, right? So you already have a following, they're engaging with your posts, they're engaging with who you are, but maybe they haven't converted into clients yet. A webinar, especially a free one, for us, it's going to be one day, maybe a couple hours, nothing too crazy, but you're giving them A, good information, B, you're giving them stories, and then C, you're actually helping them along their path. So they're getting to know, like, and trust you more than just seeing your clips on Instagram or seeing your Instagram story or seeing you on LinkedIn. Now they're getting to spend an hour and a half with you. They're basically me, just if I was silent and listening to you talk. And what that does is, at the end of the day, those people are, when they know, like, and trust you more, they're either going to do two things, which is one, they're either going to buy whatever it is you have on the end and come into your ecosystem, or two, they're going to say, well, this maybe just isn't for me, and they're going to go the other way. But at least it vets them without you having to get on a bunch of sales calls, having to do a lot of connection calls. And I've seen that be really, really powerful with people just like you who have an engaged following. My buddy who has an engaged following, we ran a webinar with him. We put it together in like 2 weeks. Didn't take a whole ton of time. I think 100 people ended up showing up to it. And at the end of the day, he made about $4,000 selling something that was $100. And so for him, like, that's pretty decent. Yeah.
That's crazy.
And what's crazy about it was it wasn't even smooth. It wasn't as if we actually sat down, because you know this, being a speaker, is you actually take time to rehearse what you're going to say. He didn't. He just kind of let it go on the fly. The tech messed up right at the end, right as we're doing the offer drop, and it didn't matter. People were still all over. They were still buying, and I was just sitting there looking, because I'm sitting there looking at the back office, and I'm just going, this is wild. This guy's making sales right now after messing up half of his presentation. So I know that there's so much power in what you have, and you don't have to do it big. Most of the time when people think of online events, you'll see someone like Tony Robbins doing one, or Grant Cardone is doing one right now, or you'll see someone like Alex Hormozy doing one, and they're huge. You don't have to put on a big production to be able to produce big results for you and your business. And the best thing is this is just another way for you to help people. You're creating more legacy. You're truly helping people, and you're allowing them to help themselves. You're giving them the roadmap to help themselves. And the cool thing is if you have like a 6-step process for someone becoming a speaker, if you give them the first 3 steps that can be implemented and it will actually help them, they don't have to have all 6 steps to be able to have any kind of success. If in 3 steps they could have success and you could charge for it, let's say you have $1,000 course and you sell, and you have the first 3 pieces, and that could be $500 worth of value. But at the back end, you decide to not give them the whole 6-step process. You're giving them 3 in the webinar. Then you can say, hey, if you want the other 3, or if you want to work with me to get these next steps, this is how you can work with me to be able to help get you the rest of the way. Now, and then you say, hey, if you don't want to go the rest of the way, you don't have the money, take these first 3 things I gave you, because I promise you it'll change your life. And then if they go and implement it and it actually does work the way that you say it's going to work, guess who they're going to go buy from? They're going to buy from you. Now you're the authority in the space. So that's why, for me, I think the webinars are really, really important.
I love it. What about organization? How do you organize a webinar?
Yeah. So
I know they're thinking it. They're like, okay, where do I go? I might even have it around here. I bought Expert Secrets, and it's just too complicated for me. What should I do?
I mean, let's just make it easy, right? So I have a buddy of mine. Again, this is one of the relationships. And I asked him how he built his company, and he built his company off the back of webinars. And this is how he did it. So the way that he did it, and I think it's a genius model for anyone who wants to get started and you don't want to run any kind of paid marketing or anything, is what he does is he reaches out to people on LinkedIn. And when he talks to them, he's figuring out who they are. Are they ever a speaker? Do they speak on even podcasts? And if they say that, yeah, I do podcast guesting, or I'm a podcast host, I actually am an international speaker, I'm a motivational speaker, I'm whoever. And he goes, oh, wow, that's amazing. I'm actually running a free event to my speaker university. I've done X, Y, and Z. I would love to just see you there. And then he just gives them the link. And he does it every single month. And he's made multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars doing that. It's a free webinar. And that's his whole marketing strategy. That is it. He uses LinkedIn, the InMail one. So he uses LinkedIn Premium. He reaches out to the people he's figured out who's ideal who is now. He reaches out to a bunch of them. He sends them the link. They join the free webinar. And then on the back end, he asks them to join his university or whatever he has. That's it. I mean, that's the whole thing. So when you think about organization, you can do it so many different ways. You can, even for someone like you who has a follower base, my tips would be is you can just make content around it. If you decided that you wanted to run an event in a month, then you can just make content around it. You can sit there and make a quick video, minute-long video that you can put on your YouTube shorts. You can put on Instagram, put it on Facebook, put it on LinkedIn, and just say, hey, Speak University, or this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, and I actually, for those of you who aren't in Speak University and you want to get a sneak peek, you want to get a taster of it, I'm actually having this free event next month so you guys can get to experience what my 500 paying clients experience. And so now you're teasing the people who've been on the border on if they want to get into your Speak University. Now they're going to actually show up to see, well, what is this thing? Because right now it's paywalled, right? The only way for them to get to experience you is either through your content or paid. There's not a middle ground. The webinar is like a middle ground between the two. So when they show up, they could show up to a Zoom room. It doesn't really matter. They show up, they hear from you, and then on the back end, you offer them something. You offer them the next step. So if that's getting into Speak University, offer Speak University. But now you've bridged the gap. And I would say for everyone listening, make it easy and just do that. If you wanted to get more complex, the way that we organize events is it's always some kind of marketing channel that leads to a fully built out like funnel system, which has your landing page, upsell page, downsell page, sales page, all these other things, thank you page, all this stuff. Then you go to the event, then we have all this on the back end and email automations and all that stuff. But you don't need all that to get started. So I don't want to tell you each and every one of these different individual steps, because you don't need it to get started and actually start seeing results now.
I love it. I love it. What about inside of, as far as the content that you give them? Because I know you're not supposed to necessarily teach all of your stuff.
Nope.
So what type of content are you typically given during webinars?
What I would find is I would go for you. I'll just keep using you as the example.
I love it because I'm going to use it.
Amen. I hope you do. I hope you do use it, because if you don't use it, I'm going to be knocking on your DMs again and be like, hey, man. Hey, you. But honestly, what I would do is I would go look at how you structure teaching people now, and find it. So let's say that you have an onboarding process, then you have the next steps. Great. But find the steps that sound really, really good. Maybe it's you could literally make an entire event about how to get your first speaking engagement. Because if you made a whole event around getting your first paid speaking engagement, there's going to be people show up to that. I would probably be one of those people. I'd probably show up to that. But when you do, because it's sexy, it sounds sexy. Like, people can be speakers. I can go speak on nonprofit stages for free. That's not super exciting, but getting paid to do it, even if it's a $500 paycheck, that's exciting. So
I actually got a buddy that texted me before we went on. I got my first paid speaking engagement. He's freaking pumped.
Exactly.
And there's not a whole bunch of money for him.
Exactly.
He's pumped. But go ahead. Yeah.
But that's what I mean, is if you could even do that, is just say, I'm going to show you how to get your first paid speaking engagement. And now you're not promising that they're going to get it, but in that, the whole webinar is just going to have content around it. And it's not really giving away the whole thing. You can sit there, and the first part of it would always be your story. It's like, how did Tony find this? Because people want to know, instead of you just teaching them, okay, Steven, so this is step one. You're going to reach out here. You're going to do this. But you tell them story. You get them hooked in with your story. Now that they understand that you haven't always been proficient as a speaker. You haven't, not every single day you're getting hit up with $1 million contracts to come speak on a stage. That now they say, okay, I can relate to him. Now, when you start showing them the next things, they're going to believe it. And then just be honest with like what those next steps are. I don't like when people are very ambiguous, where they say, you could do this, or maybe this, and this could also work. Just tell them what worked for you. Just say, this is what's worked for me. That I did this. I LinkedIn messaged this many high schools to be able to connect with the principal, and the principal was able, or the superintendent got me to be able to speak to the high school students. Whatever it is, to be able to that helped you get your first speaking engagement, just talk about that. Because now you're being very in integrity for yourself, because that's how you did it, right? And you're telling people this is how you can do it. And then if there's a more complex way at the end, you could even say, hey, this is the long, hard way to get your first speaking engagement. And if you want to get it faster, this is how you get your first speaking engagement, your first paid speaking engagement faster with Speak University. Now you've given people great wealth, right? I can take that and go, I don't want to invest in this program yet, but I can go get my first paid speaking engagement if I just do this. And then for the people listening, they go, well, I could do that, or I could just pay $997 or whatever it is, and I could get into it and learn what I need to go faster to get get one engagement. And you could even say that, hey, one engagement. Just think about this, guys. So one speaking engagement will literally pay for this. So what happens if I help you get to? Now everything after that is profit. Then now people are like, oh, so he can help me get my first one, which pays for this thing. Now I can go get my second one, which now I'm just in money.
Ooh, that's a freaking amazing strategy. I love it. I'll let you know freaking how it goes. Freaking
okay.
I'm curious. I got the lion staring in the back of me.
Yes.
What motivated you to start the Voice of a Lion podcast, and what topics do you typically talk about, and where can our people go and subscribe to it? Because that's one thing. You said that you didn't have an offer. I always love to promote the people that come on the show. I want people to flood your podcast, to listen to your podcast, because this episode is so freaking, I know that this episode has brought value. I cannot imagine how your show is going right now, and the breath of fresh air of freaking knowledge that you're giving your listeners. So I definitely want y'all to go and check out Voice of a Lion podcast. But yeah, what prompted you to start it?
So what prompted me to start it was actually a very interesting conversation, because it was almost 2 years ago, and we came to where we live now, which is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we were at a church conference, and this church, we actually go to the church now, but it had 4,000 people in the building. And I remember it was the very last day of this conference, and we're standing on the front row, and the pastor of the church, he comes out, and they're sitting there right after Cody and Carrie Carnes are up there singing. So I didn't even know who they were at the time, which is funny. But so he comes up there and he's speaking, and all of a sudden I have my eyes closed. I'm sitting there praying, and he calls me out in front of 4,000 people. And he says, "Hey, my brother in the green hat." And I just went, "Oh shoot, that's me. I'm in the green hat right now." And when I looked up, he starts speaking over my life. And there's one thing that he says. He said, you're going to be a voice like a lion to this generation. And I remember after he spoke that over me, actually, oh no, hold on. Let's see. Did I do it? Yes. So it's actually right here on my background with me getting spoken over. And
wow.
that's actually the real picture. Somebody took a picture of me, and that saying, "Voice like a lion for this generation," it lives on my lock screen for that reason. And after it was a few months after that, I just kind of wanted to get into a podcast. And then I was sitting there thinking about it. My wife said, "Hey, you really need to start a podcast." And I just went, "Well, why would I start a podcast? I've got a zillion other things I could focus on." And she said, "Because you're supposed to be a voice like a lion for this generation." So I started the podcast, Voice Like a Lion. And then I just kind of dabbled in it. And then towards the end of last year, I went, you know what? I'm actually going to try at this thing. And then since then, it's been crazy. I mean, I don't have a ton of subscribers. That'd be my offer, is just to go check out the YouTube. Because, I mean, my YouTube went from less than 10 subscribers to almost 60. I'm at 59. My views went from less than 1,000 to almost 30,000 in the last 3 months. So for me, that's big growth. And so that's what spurred it. And then the topics I typically cover it's very similar to this. We kind of go all over the place, but I always talk to business owners, angel investors. I talk to people who have gone through something. Like, I want to know not just about their success. I want to know what you went through. How did you actually discover that success? There was a gentleman who was on my podcast. He basically created a Fortune 500 in Mexico. I mean, he created a gigantic company. And the whole time he didn't talk about his company. He just talked about happiness. And it was just fascinating to hear his depth of knowledge on just the thought process of happiness. I had never thought about happiness the way that he explained it. And for right at 31 minutes, I'm just sitting there just like, I can't ask a deeper question because he's going to the literal depths of this topic. So for me, is we cover so many different things, but I always want to cover the overcoming and the story of overcoming and how you discover those things, because more people are stuck in the middle. Then there's so many more people stuck in the middle than there are people that are successful. And there's a lot of people that have failed at something and are afraid to even start again. So having those stories, those are the stories that I'd love to have.
Oh, dude, that's beautiful. So the viewers, the listeners, please make sure you check out the Voice of a Lion podcast. I'm certainly going to check it out. I know we talked about this earlier. You had Jeremy Ryan Slate on there, and I don't think I've ever shared this during the podcast, but I had him on the show I had him on the show. We hadn't monetized yet. And I just asking him just questions about monetization. In my head, I was thinking that it was just so hard and it was just this thing that was unfallible. But he gave me some information that I was just like, oh, Amazon, Audible, affiliate. I read books already. I'm always telling my friends about books. And that's what kind of led me through the process of recommending all the things that I use for the podcast. And that's how our podcast, it started off being paid for by itself. Now it's paying for people now. So thankful to him, man. And I think that that's really cool that you had him on the podcast. I'm definitely going to check out more episodes on that thing, man. I heard the first episode. I thought that it was freaking amazing. I think that you're an amazing host. I think that you have been an amazing guest. Dude, I love what you're doing, man. And I want to figure out a way to further support you, that's definitely something that I want to keep in conversation with you, because I feel like you are the voice for this generation. I mean, you do have a voice like a lion, man, and I want to see how I can support you. So dude, thank you for coming on the show, for spending time. I tell your partner, thank you for lending us you. We said 45 minutes, but it's been an hour and 20 minutes. That always happens, conversations. But dude, thank you so much. Is there anything that you want to say to the people before we get out of here?
To the people, I just want to say, no matter where you're at, whether you're on the mountaintop or you're in the valley low, is just continue to move forward. If you're on the mountaintop, that could be a mountain to you, but it may be a hill in the process of your life. And specifically for you, Tony, is I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for all the voices that you don't hear that you've been able to impact. I want to say thank you for the lives that you changed, and for allowing me the space. You've allowed me the space to be authentically myself. I haven't had to try to be anyone else. We haven't just talked about a topic. You got to cover in depth some things that I believe are going to help the listeners, and some things that I'm going to walk away with. So I just want to say thank you for having me, and just thank you. And thank you for what you're doing for people who are introverted. Cause I grew up an introvert where I just stayed in the corner with my Lincoln Logs, and you could just leave me alone for hours. Mm-hmm. If you would have showed me at 5, seeing myself now at 30, there's no way I would ever think that I'd be on a camera talking for an hour and 20 minutes to somebody. There's no way. So I just want to say thank you for giving a voice to the voiceless, and helping the unseen be seen, and helping the unheard be heard.
Ooh, thank you for saying that. I receive it. I appreciate it, dude. It's been such a journey for me. I look at, even now, man, I look at pictures of myself when I was growing up, the anxiety that I would get, not just from public speaking, but just from being seen. And even doing this podcast, that I never would have thought that I would be able to hold a conversation and not have anxieties, and thinking, oh man, I hope the people that are listening to me, I hope they don't think that I sound stupid. Oh, I just said a lot of ahs and ahs, or, oh, I hope Steven doesn't think I'm a quack, or all of these different things that I'm sure that I would have thought. And that is my purpose. I realize my purpose is to help people, not just introverts who have a fear of public speaking, but helping people use their voice. And for the viewers and the listeners, one thing that I want to let you know, I haven't told anybody this yet, really. I think I've been hinting at it, but speakuniversity.org, we have just started. We're in the middle of launching this campaign where we're helping other people launch successful podcasts, where we're teaching them how to use their voice to really ignite change, using their voice to make some serious money, because I believe that, you know what I'm saying? Podcasting is taking over advertisement for radio. I'll tell you this, I'm still in school right now. I went back to school so that they've been teaching me stuff about business that I'm loving. But one of the things that I was going to do was an internship for a radio station so that I can figure out that. And I freaking 2 days of it, I was just like, no. Podcast. And my audience freaking supersedes what this local radio station can do. And I was just blown away by the power of podcasts, and by the power of us being able to use our voice and magnify our voice to really help people. And so, for the people that are listening, people that are viewing this, I would love to invite you to check out at speakuniversity.org's Build Your Own Stage, where we're teaching you how to build a purposeful podcast. So yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up.
Let's go. That's awesome. Everybody listening, make sure to check that out.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Steven. I really appreciate you for being on the show. Thank you for allowing me to travel with you on your journey. I want to say thank you for the things that you're doing, the things that you've done, and the things that you're going to do, because I know that you're going to do something truly amazing. Remember, I'm here to stand by you as you chase your dreams, lead with greatness, and continue to make a difference. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so that you can be notified every time we drop a new episode. I'll see you next time on Leaders Lead the Podcast. Peace.